Today we're focusing on the 9th edition Reanimation Protocols rule, how strong it is, how we can make it stronger, and some sneaky tricks that you can do with Reanimation. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. So Reanimation Protocols work very differently in the new Necron Codex compared with the old. Certainly more meaningful on some units, but less so on others. Today we're going to talk through the rule and how it works, a bit of a discussion on how strong it is on various different units, all the ways to make Reanimation Protocols a bit stronger, and how I would think about using it when I reanimate models on the board. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So Reanimation Protocols has a very wordy rule, where the downed Necrons claw their way back to life to have another go at finishing off the living. You resolve Reanimation Protocols each time an enemy unit has finished shooting or fighting against it. If they've killed a bunch of your 1 wound models, then you basically roll the dice for each one, and on a 5+ they get back up. But it's a bit more complicated on multi-wound models. Say if you were targeting 2 wound multi-wound models, then you'd roll 2 dice for each of them, and for each 2 5+s you get, then you'd be able to stand 1 back up. If you rolled an odd number, like rolling 3 5+s for example, then the additional 1 would be lost. You'd only get to stand up 1 additional 2 wound model. It is quite an interesting mechanic that they only trigger after an enemy unit has finished shooting them. It means that you're actually very incentivized to take quite big squads of Necrons, as it means that they're less likely to get wiped out in a single volley from 1 unit. Odds are, if you brought a big 20-man squad of Necron warriors, then you'll likely get the chance to roll Reanimation Protocols for them several times before they go down, as very few things in the game are going to kill 20 Necron warriors in one go. In some ways it's stronger than a Feel No Pain type save, such as the Death Guard gets. You still only make 1 dice roll for each time you lose a wound on a 1 wound model, even if you've been hit by a multi-damage weapon. In some ways though it's weaker, as if you do get the entire squad wiped, then you don't get to roll any of the Reanimation Protocols, and it isn't quite as effective on multi-wound models, due to that restriction of having to roll lots of dice and try and get the maximum to withstand each model up. In addition, they can only be modified by +or -1. You can get them to be at +1 Reanimation Protocols via the Canoptic Reanimator, or via the Orb of Eternity, and they might be at -1 due to some Death Watch shenanigans. Those guys have a stratagem that reduces them by 1. When the models are returned to the battlefield, they have to be set up in coherency with the unit that they were reanimated into, with a few sensible restrictions, such as not setting up in engagement range if the unit wasn't in engagement range of a unit already, and if any went down to Overwatch, then you can't set them up even closer to the enemy to reduce your charge distance in the charge phase. Otherwise it is quite free, and you can gain some decent movement or repositioning by reanimating Necron warriors. Overall, I think it's a fairly strong rule, can certainly make certain Necron units really hard to shift, though it is a shame that it's a bit underwhelming on multi-wound units. In terms of how likely you are to reanimate again, 1 wound infantry basically have the best chance. They've got a 33% chance to stand back up, which actually translates into a 50% increase in durability for the unit due to the chance of reanimated models reanimating once more. For Necron warriors themselves, that's buffed even further. They are allowed to reroll 1s to reanimate thanks to their number is legion, their special rule, which basically gives any individual warrior a 39% chance to reanimate, or overall an approximately 63% survivability boost compared with if they didn't have the rule. Unfortunately, with 2 wound or 3 wound models, the numbers just aren't quite as good. Say if you lost 1 Lich Guard to enemy shooting, you'd only have an 11% chance to get him back up, as you need both dice to roll a 5. 2 casualties gives you around about a 40% chance to resurrect 1, and then the chance significantly increases from there. You can usually expect around 1 model to return from 3 deaths in the Lich Guard unit, though it's still very much not guaranteed. 3 wound models have it even worse than the Lich Guard. If you want to try and reanimate Scorpec destroyers, then 1 death only gives you a 4% chance to resurrect 1, 2 gives you around about a quarter chance to get 1 back up, and then 3 deaths again will give you a reasonable chance of getting 1 back, again completely not guaranteed. So to have a decent chance of resurrecting a Lich Guard or Scorpec destroyer, you'd have to lose around 3 casualties, so they are going to have to be shot by something really quite hefty to kill that many multi-wound models in one single round of shooting. Models with a higher number of wounds are obviously less likely to take casualties from shooting because they're tougher. Overall, it translates to Reanimation Protocols being really quite powerful on 1 wound models, particularly things like Necron Warriors, Necron Immortals, or Fade ones, and more being a bit of a nice to have on 2 wound models and fairly useless on 3 wound models. We can of course buff Reanimation Protocols in a number of decent ways. We already mentioned Necron Warriors getting their reroll 1s of the Reanimation Protocols via their number is Legion. It just makes it a little bit stronger on them than standard. The Canoptic Reanimator can give you a 4+ reanimation protocol rule on one unit, which is a reasonable durability buff compared with just having standard reanimation protocols. It increases your durability by around an extra third, which isn't a bad buff, but you do need to make sure that you're targeting the unit that your opponent's actually going to target. It's really quite expensive at 110 points, and point for point it's really fragile as well, meaning it's usually just going to be in your opponent's interest to shoot the Reanimator down, stop the reanimation beam, and then shoot the rest of the unit. I think the Reanimator could have been far more useful if it had character protection or some way to stop it being shot straight off the table. Even then, it is a lot of points, and it might well have just been worth getting more models on the table for that points cost in the first place. A bit sad really, but it really just needs a points drop if it's going to be included. Next, there's a decent buff in the Protocol of the Undying Legions, one of the command protocols that allows you to reanimate just that little bit better. Each time you roll reanimation protocols, you can re-roll 1 dice. This one's really quite good against small chip damage against units, as it means that any single one warrior going down will have a much better chance to reanimate. The reroll increases its chance from 33% to 56%. It could be potentially pretty helpful on multi-wound models as well, but I think again it's most powerful on single wound ones. I'd describe it as a small but meaningful durability buff. It might get you a few more warriors back on the field, but no more than that. Next we have Resurrection Orbs and the Orb of Eternity. Resurrection Orbs are used once per game and trigger reanimation protocols in the command phase, and every single dead model in the unit gets the chance to try and reanimate. Honestly, I really quite like the mechanic, though it is somewhat dependent on your opponent to leave a squad damaged but not 100% destroyed. Ideally, you'd want to be targeting something that's taken very heavy casualties, such as a Necron warrior squad that's lost 15 or more models. The Orb of Eternity goes one better and allows you to roll reanimation protocols on a 4+ as well, and in the right list can be really quite a strong relic. For example, if you manage to target a big Necron warrior squad that's lost 15 models, then the Orb of Eternity will bring back around about 9 of them. It stacks very nicely with those re-roll ones. It's really quite a meaningful amount of model points brought back to the field that your opponent has to try and kill all over again. Finally, aside from reanimation protocols, there are a few resurrection abilities in the Necron Codex. Ghost Arcs can help repair Necron warrior units nearby. Rites of Reanimation from a Cryptek can put some more models back on their feet, and your characters can get back up themselves with a stratagem as well, though none of these are really reanimation protocols. I guess they can help to bulk up a Necron warrior squad again though, which might mean that you get the chance to roll reanimation protocols a few more times before the squad is fully wiped out. Finally, returning models back to the field does have its opportunity for some shenanigans, particularly if you're targeted multiple times on the same unit and keep on getting to reanimate more and more models, then you could chain them out quite a long way and essentially get some free movement in your opponent's turn. Against enemy shooting, you could potentially reanimate models into nearby light cover and then take some future saves on them, giving them a better chance to pass. If you're playing some sort of melee Necron unit like flayed ones, you could reanimate closer and closer towards the enemy. Even just reanimating one model out at the front of the unit could shave a good few inches of a charge roll when you have to make it next turn. You could also think about trying to drop your Necron forces back. You could pull casualties from the front of the unit and then reanimate at the back. That could make some enemy charges longer while your models are still alive. You could even think about running away good and completely by reanimating out of line of sight of enemy units, so when they kill off all of the ones inside, your reanimated models might be safe. Finally, as objectives are all important in 40k, we could be thinking about putting more models on objectives to defend them, or even chaining some models out to reach an objective to take it away from your opponent when they didn't think there'd be any way for you to get there. Lots of possibilities. I'm sure that they won't come up all that often, but I think it's worth being aware of the various options when you do put them back on the field. In melee, you could think about trying to place them in a way that might wrap and trap enemy models if it makes sense to, or string them out towards the end of the unit, and when the Necron unit activates to fight, you might be able to pile in and lock up other enemy units that they weren't expecting you to be able to reach. So I hope you've enjoyed a little rundown of reanimation protocols and the options you can use. Overall, I would say that it's a fairly strong rule for Codex Necrons, and you can certainly build around it with big blobs of warriors supported by characters, though I don't think that every Necron list necessarily has to make full advantage of it, and it could just be viewed as a little nice to have on top of your army's already decent abilities. If I've made any errors at all, or you have any additional tricks that you can use reanimation protocols for, please let me know down in the video comments. It'll be good to have a read over them. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more Necron content, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we'll certainly keep the videos coming. And if you have been enjoying all the videos I make, feel free to give the Patreon page a look down in the video description. It is how I have enough time to make all the content on the channel, so if you are enjoying regularly, any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons get a few extra rewards as well, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what comes next on the channel, and also automatic entry into the channel's monthly prize giveaway with a chance to win some big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.